We're selling our product to you today, and I hope you can invest. It's going to be about $10,000.
For 1% stake in.
Is that one call or is that multiple calls?
That is one call.
One call. I like your teddy bear.
You like our what? I know.
Game of teddy bears.
It is Game of Teddy Bears. Yeah, this is true. I know. So I always wondered, is it halves or is it halves? I've seen it both ways.
Unknowable.
It is 7 dwarves. No, it's 7 dwarves to me.
All right, I think we're about time. Welcome to Monday of Halves. So we're going through a few teams today. You'll have 15 minutes to present. I will be signaling you at 5 minutes, 1 minute. So watch me. We've got a little timer here as well. We'll have time for questions afterwards. And I think we have some guests. So welcome. The teams will be presenting where they are, halfway point, and their vision for the future for the rest of the semester. So I think with that, curtain call, you're up first.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. We are Team Curtain Call, Jasheen, Charlie, Angie, Aldora, and Lauren. And our faculty advisors are Shirley Saldemarco and John Dessler. And our collaborator with the School of Drama is Elliot Heron. So I want you to picture this. You are a 4-play pass holder for CMU's drama's fall season. You have walked into the lobby for their final semester, for the final production of this semester. And as you walk through the doors, the space around you turns blue and purple, the crack of lightning, the roar of thunder. And once the shock dies down, you realize you are in the midst of an intense storm. The thrumming of raindrops, the rumbling of the thunder, the gushing of the wind, these sounds capture you. They surround you. And there you see it, a place of safety. The wide umbrellas invite you in. And as you step closer, you notice a pedestal underneath, protecting its precious item from the rain. The plaque on it reads, "Cordelia, my beloved daughter." A voice draws you in. In this supposed place of safety, you relax, but the voice that you heard becomes louder. It reverberates inside your skull. You can't escape its nagging thoughts, its deep shame, the guilt, its regret it holds. And there's another crack of lightning. The sound roars throughout the space, but within the bright flash, you see it. The words have changed. The internal has appeared. The plaque now reads, "Cordelia, the daughter that has let me down the most." The other umbrellas similarly provide no safety. They haunt you. They say to you, "Speak what we feel, but not what we ought to say." You enter the theater. The characters step on stage, and they dance around their feelings as they play pretend, but you know better.
For this project, we are creating a storm of voices in the Purnell Center lobby to immerse guests in the emotion and the world of Lear using dynamic audio, kinetic set pieces, and dynamic lighting. So what is Lear? Lear is a searing, hilarious post-tragedy collision of Shakespeare's King Lear and Sesame Street. Our target audience are younger adults like freshman students from CMU School of Drama, older adults like a CMU School of Drama 4-play pass holder, and some of people might have limited understanding and they are expecting to see King Lear, whereas some of them might have better understanding of the play Lear. For emotional goals, we want them to feel like, to understand the mindset and emphasize with the emotion of the characters. We want them to feel like they're in a storm, and after the show, they should feel like the storm has ended and feel more relieved. For project goals, we want to create a lobby installation to prepare the audience for the show to enhance their experience and also immerse the guests in the storm from Lear.
And this is how our installation may look like. We have clouds representing the storm, and each umbrella and the pedestal will function as a station to represent the character in the play. And we have different, like 5 characters in total. And when the lightning cracks, this is how it looks like when the UV light is on and the invisible ink appears.
So for user journey, we have multiple potential scenarios, and for different persona represent different groups of target audience. We also thought about their actions, feelings, thoughts, and time that will take during the experience. One potential simplified version will be like this. When you as a guest enter the lobby, you will see the installation immediately and hear some background sounds like wind blowing and raining sounds. And then you want to go get a ticket at the box office. You notice some people are standing under those umbrellas. And while you are waiting in line, you hear some loud thunder sounds with cracks of UV lightning. You also notice the cloud's color is actually responding to those loud thunder sounds. After you get your tickets, you are interested in this piece of installation and you walk around it. You realize there are some hidden messages on the pedestal, and also the thunder sound is building in intensity over time. You want to interact with the installation, so you go stand under the umbrella, you hear something that you couldn't hear outside the umbrella, and those sounds are reverberating in your mind. They're the inner thoughts of the characters from the play. You, at the same position, you can also take a closer look at the pedestal display of the characters. Now it's your time to watch the play. When you walk into the theater, you will feel a smooth transition, and during the play, you will make some connections between the installation and the play itself. After the play, you return to the lobby. You will notice the change of the installation and the environment. Instead of hearing thunder sounds, you will hear more like bird sounds that representing the storm has ended. You will also see more colorful and delightful clouds. Now you might want to wait for your friend who is putting in the show, so you have some time to kill in the lobby. Therefore, you can take some time to look at the pedestal closely and see the hidden messages, because the UV light will always be on after the show, and at the same time, you can go under the umbrella again to listen to the new, changed, lighthearted audio track of the characters.
So the main technology we're using to create this storm of voices is directional speakers, which through the magic of modulated ultrasonic waves beam out a sound in a particular direction, and you can't hear them if you're not in that direction that they're facing. So if you can see Angie demonstrating it if you're in the first few rows. So they'll hit something and no one outside that narrow beam can hear them, and they collapse at that area. They have some issues about limited frequency response in the lower ranges, so they're really only good for midtones and voices. We have bought and tested a speaker kit, which is the technology we'll be using as shown on the right side, and we will be making more of those over the coming week. But what exactly are you hearing through these speakers? So we want to make the internal of the characters from the play external, so you understand their relationships and their struggles with them, with their father and the other characters in the play. And the kind of guilty feelings they get when they hear the voice, the storm sounds. Maybe you're something like Reagan, who has extreme middle child syndrome and envies the good things her sister Goneril has, and the way people treat her younger sister Cordelia. Or you're Edmund, who struggles so much with how much he lies to people that he doesn't even know when he's telling himself or other people the truth anymore. Here's some example lines that would be what you're hearing over the directional speakers. They're a mix of lines written by us, lines from the original King Lear, and lines from the new play Lear. Things like Reagan reflecting on her relationship with her sisters in a mocking way, what people say to her about them. Aren't you kind and pretty and perfect like Cordelia? Or the echoing lines of Edgar and Edmund reflecting on how they trust and lie to other people. Edgar being, it's not my fault for trusting other people, it's other people for lying. Or Edmund saying, it's not my fault for lying, it's other people for believing my lies.
So throughout the lobby, we will have several hanging umbrellas, and inside each of the umbrellas will be the directional speaker. So the idea with the umbrellas is that when you're standing underneath the umbrellas, you can hear a special audio track that you cannot hear if you're standing otherwise in the lobby. So we're planning to have 5 different umbrellas spread throughout the lobby, and each one will be themed to one of the 5 different characters from Lear, and we're planning to accomplish this theming through different colors as well as through different audio tracks.
And for the clouds we use, they have like both a microphone and the lights inside so that it can change its color according to the sounds. And right now we plan to use like cloud color like for the storm, but after the show we may want to change it to like orange warm color to represent the storm is in.
The character props are show-set elements symbolize each character and go with the character-themed umbrellas. They will place on the pedestal which holds hidden message of the character. We want to write and pin on the pedestal using the invisible ink pen, and also we want to illuminate the pedestal to reveal the message during the cracks of lightning with UV lights.
Here's just a brief overview of our tech stack, so how we're achieving all this software-wise. We're going to make all our sounds and modify and do all the things to them in Audition. We will then send them to Unity with the plugin Fmod, which we'll be using for all our sequencing needs and dividing everything up into the 6 audio channels we need for each character and each station and the other things. Unity will then be triggering a Raspberry Pi Pico to activate the UV lights in time with the audio. That'll then be sent to a mixer, which will divide up the sounds to where they need to go. For the storm sound effects, because they have a high bass and they won't work well on the directional speakers, we're sending them to the Purnell House speakers, the ones they already have in the lobby. And then the voices and whispers on the window, the characters, will go to our speaker kits, each with their own channel, so each of them has a different sound going through it.
Throughout our design and development, we've been speaking with several members of the CMU School of Drama. In particular, we've been speaking with Susan Su, who runs the current string installation at the lobby, and we've also been speaking with David Randolph, who's the facilities manager for CMU School of Drama. So we've been speaking with them about their previous installations and how those have been accomplished. And after our conversations, we feel very positively moving forward with our plan of hanging our installation from the second floor balcony of the lobby. So with that in mind, we created a floor plan for our installation. We laid out where we want to lay out all of our set elements, as well as potential wiring plans to the second floor outlets.
And we test our directional speaker in both RPIS and the Purnell House. It actually works better in a noisy place because the noisy background will absorb some part of the sounds of the speaker so that like the audience can only hear the sounds right under the umbrella, which is what we want. Also, we test the cloud's sensitivity at ETC, and here's the video.
Yes.
Slay.
So the sensitivity gave us like many choices, but for now we only wanted to like react to the sooner sounds, not the like other sounds.
We still have some plans for future playtesting that we want to accomplish. First of all, we want to do some more testing with the UV floodlights. We want to test in the final space to see how many are we going to need and where exactly do we want to position them. We also want to do some testing with the invisible ink to see how it reacts with our final lighting setup. We want to do some more testing with the directional speakers. We've already done quite a bit of testing with these with different crowd sizes as well as in different areas, but if we can get a larger crowd and test more in the space, that's really what we're looking for. And finally, we want to do some more testing of the guest understanding of our installation. We just want to make sure that our experience is as intuitive as we believe that it will be.
So a few challenges we've had with this project would be our tight deadline, as Lear runs during soft opening week, which is November 29th, and we have to be installed by November 27th. Our solution for this problem is to have our main elements finished by the end of October using a smaller scope fabrication-wise so we can be completed by that time. Another challenge we're having is the string installation run by Susan Su, which will be running this week up until Thanksgiving weekend, which causes limited testing in our space. We've talked with Susan Su, and we've asked her where we could test while her string installation is up, and she has provided us with some clearance on the balcony so we could hang things up to test. Our final challenge is another lobby installation will be running up until the day of our first showing. And our solution to this is that we're working with the other dramaturg to make sure we can install on time and that we won't have conflicting installations. As a recap, our destination is to have 5 umbrellas with a directional speaker inside of them, so only guests can hear them, theming each station to a character, and playing audio relevant to those characters' thoughts and feelings so a guest can understand them better, as well as having a UV light revealing invisible messages written on the podium, as well as the character props, and playing with this idea of external versus internal. Our stretch goals include installing fans to have the feeling of wind and having an after rain smell play after the production. Our completion schedule is as follows. We're going to finish Clouds this week, finish our script over fall break, finishing the storm sound effects as well as our directional speakers and umbrellas after the words, and then completing with the sound system software, which will wrap up our main experience, and then continue playtesting and iterating after playtest day. Thank you, everyone. We are Team Curtain Call, and we are now open for questions. Jesse.
It seems like a great deal depends on your ability to control the lighting.
Yes.
How confident do you feel about, because you talked about permission to hang things, but you didn't talk about controlling lighting at all. Will you be able to do that?
We're currently in talks with C. Todd Brown about the lighting in the house.
Okay. If you find that your ultraviolet trick doesn't work out because of lighting reasons, do you have a backup plan?
Not at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
With the directional audio that's going to happen under the umbrellas, whose voices are going to be heard? Are you able to work with the actual actors playing those characters, or are they going to be other people?
Yeah, we're already in talks with the dramaturge, and we have preliminary agreement for the actors from the play to voice the characters that they will be. So it'll be a lot easier for the audience to make that connection.
Yeah, quick question. How well does the directional audio work in louder spaces? It worked really well in a kind of quiet room as you were talking. And have you guys investigated how this space is typically used before a performance?
So they work. So we have a way to increase the volume by giving it more power so that we can adjust for how big the crowd is. And as far as the directionality, it works better in larger crowd settings because as it goes off, it kind of falls below the background noise a lot quicker than you do in an empty space. So we have the ability to increase it to the point where we should be able to hit any level of crowd noise that we expect, even if it's a 300-person auditorium, as well as it works better in the crowd because it falls down a bit. What was the second question?
Have you experienced this space before on these performances?
There hasn't been a performance of this season yet. There's actually going to be one this week, and we will all be attending. So we'll test there.
Quick question. How does the audio that I'm hearing through the umbrellas, does that affect my engagement with any one character during the play? Let's say I don't get to all of the umbrellas. Does that change how I engage with the play?
Yeah, so there'll be a few lines that the characters will say in the play that you might hear. Like there's one line that a character says at the very beginning, "I'm a terrible person." That's one of the lines you might hear. Also, you feel like, we hope the audience will come in and feel like they better understand these people's internal struggles a bit, because it can be a bit obfuscated in certain parts of the play. But if they hear these lines, they probably understand these people better, they relate to them a bit, so we hope it will make them empathize with them better throughout the play.
I'm kind of curious how you are iterating this with the people who are making the play and how you're sort of like building in possibly time for changes and like if you have a tight deadline in installation, like how are you making sure that they're bought into what you're doing such that when it opens, everyone's like, yes, this is what we want?
They've already received a preliminary examples of our script, so they have about 30 example lines to judge on that we're working with the dramaturge and the director on a bit. We also are working with them on good props to use for each character to make sure they're okay with it and if they can provide any support. So we are directly going back and forth with them in the preliminary step, in later steps after iteration, and going forward.
We're working very closely with them.
Quick question. Is the playwright living or dead? Living. Okay.
All right, thank you, team.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thanks everyone for being here. We're Team Intent, short for Interactive Tool for Empathy and Neurotypicals. We're a team of 5. We have Veron, our producer, James, our game designer, Ash, UI UX designer, Laura, our 3D artist, and Zibo, our programmer. Our instructors are Mike and Scott. Our clients and subject matter experts are Andrew Bagel, Morgan Evans from CMU, Jennifer, Elizabeth, Kathy from University of Maryland, and also Stephen from the US government.
The goal for our team is to create a narrative-based interactive experience for neurotypicals that is NT to gain better understanding and empathy towards autistic people that is AP in workplace and be their allies. Our final deliverable will be a Unity WebGL build, and we'll compare it with existing information-based training modules to test our effectiveness, and we'll also provide tools and data for further research and development of more impactful training sessions.
So for the first quarter of the semester, we've been doing a lot of research and ideation around how we want to do this project. And we wanted to focus on the microaggression scenarios between the neurotypicals and autistic people in the workplace. And we also thought of a story arc of the player going from an employee into becoming the boss. We're also thinking between using the first-person point of view, which is the player playing as an autistic person, and the third-person point of view, which is the player playing as a neurotypical person observing the situation and interact with it. And we were also exploring different platform possibilities, including PC, Quest, and WebGL. We also wanted to take the character design in the direction of a more cartoon style because realistic human animation might complicate the expression of emotions. However, after our quarter walk around, we did some reflection and we realized that we were doing too much thinking. So we decided to move on and make a prototype and let our clients, faculty, and playtesters playtest it and get feedback. We also realized that our scenarios were too niche, so we decided to focus more on the transformational goal and then build around that goal to create episodes. And we also decided to use the third-person point of view because our clients told us they didn't want to make it a disability simulator and want to focus more on the communication. We also focused on the WebGL development after quarter walk around because it's more accessible for a workplace environment. And our clients also raised the concern of the cartoon style being not fit for a professional context. So we tried to find the balance between the two and came up with our character design, which we will dive into later.
So
So what do we have so far? Well, we have a demo for you guys. It's a really short demo. The current demo highlights a couple of really important parts of the whole experience. Our movement system, so you can move using WS80 and press E to interact with elements in your environment. Since it's narrative-based, you need a conversation system there, so we also have a dialogue system in place, which is modular enough for any non-technical person to go in and make changes. And also, to nudge you to explore the environment a little bit, we also have a task system in place. So what does that look like? Imagine you are an employee just going about reaching your office, and the first thing you do is get coffee. So this is what it looks like. So here you see your new task is to get some coffee. You go to the coffee room, and while you're getting a coffee, you end up in a conversation. And that is how you end up talking to your old friend Blake and a new person named Tony, who is a masked or undisclosed autistic person. Yep. So narrative is one of our highest priorities, and we realize we need to highlight a couple of realistic episodes. We cannot, however, showcase all of them. So we decided to cover 3 realistic episodes. Episodes cover a bunch of interactions, and each interaction is going to highlight a couple of instances between neurotypicals and autistic people. So we're planning on highlighting accommodations that an AP or an autistic person might need in the first place, their preferred ways of socializing with other people in their vicinity, the stressful situations or challenges they face in a workplace, and the strategies that they have come up with, and the things that work for them to mitigate those challenges. And also, if and under what scenarios do they feel comfortable enough to disclose about their neurodivergence. So our narrative is supposed to highlight bidirectional aggression between an NT and an AP. So consider an example where you as an NT are just joking about working really late in the office. So you might just joke around saying, well, you already know what the sunset looks like from our office. If you stay longer, you might see the sunrise. Essentially, that means if you stay longer, it's going to be night and eventually morning. An AP might infer that literally and say, well, the sunset makes sense since your windows are facing west, but the sunrise, you won't be able to see it. An example of another bidirectional aggression is if during a presentation, say there's an AP in the audience, and if the room light starts flickering, or if the projector light is too bright, the autistic person might wear sunglasses during the meeting. Or if somebody's taking notes and the keyboard noises are too loud, or if the projector sounds starts becoming louder, they might just wear headphones during the meeting. For a neurotypical, that might come across as lack of professionalism in the workplace. To verify the authenticity of these instances, we are doing our own independent research. We are collaborating with our clients to do their research. We are also consulting with them and also our subject matter experts and interviewing with autistic people to gain more insights from them. The plan is to keep on developing episodes and playtest them with neurotypicals to understand if you're meeting the transformational goals, and also with autistic people to understand if they're authentic enough. We'll analyze the feedback and iterate on the episodes as needed.
So as I have been talking about, we were trying to find a balance between the cartoon style and the professional context this experience is going to be in. So we drew a reference from a lot of very popular animated movies and games that is also very well received among adult audience, and came up with our own character drawing inspirations from them. And all the characters in the game will share the same character base body. And because just like in real life, you won't be able to tell from the appearance of a human being whether this person is neurotypical or autistic. All the characters will differentiate with their accessory on them and the color of their body. The characters can also emote using facial expressions and also body animation. So for the environment, as you can see in the demo, the perspective will be like this, and you can see the overview of a office room. And the color palette is derived from the intent UI, and we also incorporated some corporate color elements in the environment to make it more realistic. And we decided to use modular environment model so that if we want to change the floor plan of the environment later on in the production, it will be flexible to move around and still fit together.
Our game interface mainly features green and blue, and these colors are mainly associated with autism. For our font, we selected Gilroy. It's a sans serif font, modern, but also has a friendly appeal. For buttons, we have 3 states: normal, hover, and click states. We also have 2 different types of conversation box. One is narrative box, one is dialogue box. For each of them, we tailored to fit in the specific scenarios. As you can see here, in the office scene, we use tape and the office paper to let them more integrated with the environment. Here's our task panel. It acts like a guidance, telling our player what to do and what they have already accomplished. This is the character panel. We have a short introduction to each character. This will make our player to build deeper connection to the storyline. This is the actual UI layout in the game. This is the coffee scene, and this is the office scene.
As we're building a narrative-based game, the other mechanics that is core to our experience is the dialogue system. After building our own custom dialogue system, we found it's not as cost-effective and decided to switch immediately to a third-party existing solution. Yarn Spinner is our choice. It is open source, it has trivial setup complexity, and it has some candy features such as custom logic, commands, and events in the dialogue, and it has easy voiceover integration. It is also highly customizable so that we can build our own unique features, such as has the avatar in the dialogue when anyone is speaking.
So I'll be talking about the core game mechanics. So our game is basically a series of task and interactions loop. So task is basically missions that the player has to do to push through the narrative. And the interactions is basically what you have to do to clear tasks or either get new tasks. So interactions, there's 2 types of interactions. One is actions, which is just things that you do in the scene. For example, like making a coffee. And conversation is just talking to the NPCs in the scene. And then this is a small example of our game loop working. So on the first interaction, which is a conversation, you will get a new task. And then after that, the player has to move to another location to do another interaction. And then this interaction, in this case, is an action, will clear the first task and then give you another task. And then you will do another interaction somewhere else. So this is like how our games work. Oh.
Based on our recent playtest, we tried running playtesters through our narrative and collected data regarding how believable the whole narrative is. Turns out, the player choices that they get to make in the game are roughly 3.7 out of 5 really realistic. And the scenarios or the narrative itself, the scenes, are of roughly from a 4.35 out of 5 believable. Well, and the general feedback was to give them more insights into what an autistic person might behave like and how to help them in the workspace, and make the dialogue options less binary and give them a neutral option to select. The plan before softs, it's real simple. We are going to keep on working on our episodes till week 11, and week 12 is to polish the whole narrative and keep playtesting more. Special thanks to our subject matter experts, our clients, playtesters, and also ETC faculties and ETC alumni as well. So to summarize, we are making our interactive web-based experience, which is going to cover realistic episodes, and the goal is to impart empathy in neurotypicals for autistic people, essentially making them allies of APs. And that's it. We're open for questions.
So it seemed, it was clear how I would do this. I'm not real clear on how I would reflect or how it's making a difference. How is this being used? I might have missed that when I was taking notes. I don't know. Oh, so, right. So the way we're trying to make sure it's effective is to understand what the transformational goals are and understand if you're meeting them. So it's going to be, if you're getting enough knowledge from this experience, since it's going to be run with an information-based rating module, like an existing process, we're going to compare if this is more effective and if it helps more in the general context.
So the effectiveness, I think, comes from when you interact with those characters in the game. So our system, our dialogue system will unlock specific endings, as you would say, for some options you will choose later in this game. So for the first scene, we don't have choices. It's mostly linear ones as an onboarding material. But for second and third, we'll have a more nonlinear experience where you can choose what you're gonna say to the other characters, and you can explore in the office scene and figure out how to deal with the current situation. Like say, if your AP colleagues are having conflicts with other colleagues, and how do you deal with it? And by having this information, you learn from the game, and you learn from interacting with each other. You can then gain an understanding on how to be a better ally with the AP in a more general phase.
Towards that, how do I actually get the information about whether or not my responses were, I won't say good or bad, but helpful or not helpful? How do I evaluate, what I'm doing? Are the tasks dependent on me getting the right answers, or is there a discussion phase afterwards? Like, how does that work in?
So we're also working with our clients, trying to figure out how we can incorporate this experience into the current training program they have. So the current training program is more like a traditional slide deck based and watching video kind of training program. So after they incorporate this into the current training program, there will be kind of like a facilitator leading the entire program. And there's also clues that you can find in your interaction with the NPC. If you choose a wrong response, there might be some bad consequences to happen later on in the story.
So emotional responses seem very important in this context. The characters seem mostly expressionless. How will you provide emotional responses?
So the current system, we have an avatar in the dialogue panel, as you see in the UI. So currently it's emotionless, but we have already some rigged characters and with animations on their facial expressions, and we decide to incorporate it later into the dialogue panel so that our player can see it more clearly of how they behave on this current scenario.
Yeah, so like on the dialogue panel, like over here, when like somebody is speaking, you will see like the bust profile of the character. The character will have facial expression as well as body animation. So that's how we would like to emote the characters. We're also talking to playtesters and autistic people, try to authenticate those expressions are as accurate as possible.
So I just have a couple of questions about gameplay. Are you always playing the same neurotypical character, going to the office and then interacting with a mixture of neurotypical and autistic people? Is that the overall premise?
Yes.
Okay, so your experience as that character will build over the course of the experience.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The other question I had was, can you give us examples of the kinds of player choices that you're actually going to face in the game? Because I think one of the problems with some of these scenarios is sometimes they have choices that are very didactic, right? Where it's very clear what the wrong answer is and clear what the good answer is. Are there ways you can try to get at more subtle differences in experience and approach?
Yeah. So one of the instances in the narrative is during a presentation. So we have this whole thing in the narrative, and over time, this becomes unbearable and really overwhelming for the autistic person. And the person actually walks out of the room. When you go and try and meet the person, and it's after some time you go and try and meet the person, and that is where you get an option to be upfront and ask the person, why did you leave? Or be a little friendly and say, hey, look who's on an adventure. And depending on which option you choose, the autistic person is going to respond to you accordingly and eventually build trust, and hopefully they'll tell you more about their neurodivergence.
And as for the design of the options, besides the obvious negative or obvious positive reactions, we are thinking about adding a neutral third option as an alternative, so that people like our players won't be feeling forced to make decision between left or right. Like there is a middle ground between these two, and we try our best to keep the design as not really in a false way, like even in a negative or positive option.
That's fine. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, we are Team Arcade Toys. We are making AR toy blocks. Here are our team members. What is AR toy block? AR toy block is an augmented reality experience that allows players to collaborate, gather, and decorate within the integrated environment. Our environment is split to slots that allows new blocks to be plugged in, and the base blocks that the characters will most time living in. What is meant to collaborate, gather, and decorating? Collaborate means the players will help the characters fight the dragon, help the characters to fishing, and finish the tasks. Upon collaborate to finish the tasks, the player will gather the seeds, badges, souvenirs, and small habitats. Once they gather these souvenirs, they will be able to decorate this on the environment, like plant the seeds on the environment, hang the badges on the wall, or set up the small habitats. So how is our experience going to achieve these three goals? Cassie will talk about the daily experience.
So imagine you come home from work and then you look at your tree toy on your tabletop and you're really wondering what's your characters and the environments involving or doing inside this tree toy. So you open the app to check how the character's doing. And then you probably want to go to your plants. So our plants will have different growth stage. So some of them are grown, some of them are still sprouts, and you probably want to collect the flowers from the mature plants. And then you will drag your characters to a block. It's because when you drag your character to a block, there will be new activities initiated by this action. So each block will have different activities, collaborative activities corresponding to each block. So the characters is doing spontaneous activity all the time, but when you drag the character to a new block, there will be very specific activities initiated, which is also collaborative. You have to complete it with your character to finish in one specific block. And then you will receive rewards if you succeed the collaborative activity in the block, and you can use your rewards. So the rewards could be flower seeds, badges, or any other kind of items you can add to your environment. So now we have flower seeds. You can paint on the screen to plant the flowers onto your tree, to decorate your tree. And then if you already succeed the activity of one block, the same block cannot be played again because we want to limit the rewards. So you probably want to drag your character to a new block so you can still keep exploring the environment and gathering your rewards. So Ouyang will talk about the block design.
So now about all the blocks. Blocks are the places where the collaboration and gather happens. Although we are going to design all different kinds of blocks, they have the same rule. First, each block activity can only be succeeded once per day. And second, each blocks have different levels for the players to discover. And although there are different kinds of blocks, basically there are two categories, the intense block and the relaxed block. Compared to the intense block like the dragon hunting block to the relaxed block, as for the fishing block, the intense block requires the player to more concentrated on the activity. So now I'll use this dragon block as an example to help you go through the interaction. So now, the first thing you need to do is physically plug in that block onto your tree. Then you can hold your phone to focus on the block. You can see the golden light glowing in that castle, which means this block can still be discovered today. Then you'll go back to the tree and find your character. You drag your character and place it on the block. You can see the character start to explore this block. It's going ahead to the castle, and you can see the weird shadow appears on the castle. The dragon comes, and your character start to fight with that dragon automatically. So now, how can we collaborate with it? At some specific point, your character will ask you for help. You need to move your phone to aim that dragon to help your character's attack succeed. If you collaborate successfully, you can see the dragon loses, and it leaves. So now it's time to celebrate it with your character. And it's time for gather. The character goes to the castle, goes to that golden light, and gets the reward. You can see it brings the reward back to the storage room, which in the base kit. And after that, you can just use what you get to decorate your environment. If you go back to this block, you can see that golden light already disappeared, which means this block can't be discovered again today, and you need to wait for tomorrow and go back. So how can we make our visual appealing match the system we designed and the feeling we're pursuing? We did a lot of tries through concept design. And now we're kind of settled down with the character's basic shape with this. You can see compared to the whole environment, the character is pretty small. That's why we give the character really big head and eyes to make the player can see their facial expression more clearly. And this is our tree design. We already have this sculpted tree with the texture, and we're going to build more basic module on this and 3D print it.
So as for the battle scene, here's a quick demonstration about what Ouyang have
elaborate of our design pattern. So here's a dragon, and here's a little characters inside. What you're trying to do is to use your foam as an aimer, as you can see now, to aim at the target on the dragon's body. Once you aim at it, there will be a light attack releasing on the dragon. And the same design pattern can happen to the character. For example, in sometimes maybe you need to like heal the characters, like wait for a second, and you will see a green dot, now popping up on the body. So you aim at the green dot on the green target on the player, so you can release a healing range onto his body. So whenever a dragon is attacking the character, it's a way to protect it. So this is a very consistent design pattern that happens everywhere when you try to collaborate with the character, using your foam to aim at the dragons or the characters to release the effect. And also, after you finish collaborating with the characters and get some reward, you can pan it, like for example, some seeds or flowers, you can pan it in somewhere you want to decorate. And this is how decoration system works, no matter for the seeds or the souvenirs or the badge that you collected, you can place anywhere you want. Hardware design. So hardware design is basically answering how the system works. Like, for example, if I place a dragon block on the trees, how the cameras or the system know that there's a tree attached to some specific spot on the trees. So we place the Arduino inside, and also since we have 6 slots of placeholders, there will be 6 different RFID readers attached on the branch of the leaves. And then you will see after you place a block onto that slot, there will be a RFID tags reader attached to the blocks that telling the system that, okay, here's a dragon blocks attached to the trees, and the trees will communicate with the phone with the Bluetooth to tell that, okay, here's a dragon blocks attached to maybe the number 6 slot. So the phone will render the corresponding occlusion and also the geometries into the system.
So how do we reach the point where we are at today? Our focus point has been shifted from the observe and view to interaction heavy, and to where we are at now, collaboration, gathering, and decoration. At the start of the semester, our vision of this project is to making an observing environment that mostly the player will look at the environment and discover how the character is growing in this environment. However, we find this system needs a lot of AI specifically for the character. We have to build a system to show the character is really growing, and it has to be obvious. We gathered the similar critics from the quarter that our system requires a lot of content design, especially the character animations. And it's really hard to measure how the growth of the character will be, as we vision the player will mostly play our game 10 minutes a day for over a month to really see the difference. And our system is also too complicated to implement. That's where we shift to the second idea, where we want it to be interaction heavy. We made the combat system to be the main focus of our system. And as you can see from here, the player will first drag the skill to the graph table and draw the correct graph to make the skill available, and then cast the skill to attack the dragon. But this system is too complicated, and also when use this interaction system, they will always be really focused and stay on what happens with the interaction instead of the AR technologies. They won't move the phone a bit, but mostly focusing on how to craft the skills. That's where we are at the stage 3, where we make the collaboration, gathering, and decoration to be the main focus of our system. We have the intuitive interaction, where the player just uses the phone to aim the dragon or the player, And we also have a really simple system where the player just collaborate with the character and gather the souvenirs so they could use them on decoration. And the decoration system also allows a lot customization to the environment, where each player will create their unique environment. Talking about our semester goal, we will have 3 modules in the end, 1 dragon, 1 basic module, and 1 more undecided module. Each of them will have different interactions and distinctive environments. We will have 3 characters and also the reward gaining system, where you collect the items and use the decoration system to put on the environment. Our basic module is we aim this project to be fit in different IPs, and we will have 6 or more modules for 1 IP and more than 3 characters for 1 IP. So what's next? We will do more playtests to measure how our game is successful. We will ask questions mostly likely, what does the player want to play it more? Does the player want to play in the next day? And we will also making sure we have the 3D printing physical objects in the end. Here's our production timeline. By the end of the week 11, we should have the 3 modules and the characters, and we will start by week 10 to make our 3D printing physical objects. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, I thought that your choice of collaborate instead of control is interesting because it implies a certain relationship with the character. And I'm curious if you play tested dragging, because that's your main mechanic. And is dragging changing your relationship with the character and being too forceful? Are you testing any of the other interaction besides dragging, or is dragging going to be it?
We did use test the dragging a little bit, but we originally we thought the dragging would be the main interaction system, but now dragging is basically the one that starts a fight instead of how you do the interaction during the fight. So during the fight, you only use the phone to aim. That's more like a collaboration interaction. And the direct control, like dragging the character, is only used when you want to manipulate the characters in the whole environment.
This is, in a lot of ways, a virtual pet game. One of the things I know about augmented reality virtual pet games is everyone always wants to touch the characters all the time. They want to touch them and interact with them. Do you have any way to touch and interact with the characters?
I think it's a very good point, adding some maybe haptic feeling through the phone. Like maybe if we, not even with the character, or maybe when your phone is aiming at the environment, we have different, vibrations or sounds, effects attached to it. And when you use your phone aiming to the characters, it will, have different vibration, give you the feeling that you have some physical connection with the character. But we currently didn't carry out this design patterns for design research for now, but it will be a direction that will go in the future.
Thanks.
I was going to ask about the difficulty of playtesting a game where you're expecting your audience to play 10 minutes a day. That sort of suggests you need long-term playtesting that's going to take weeks to see if people, is it fun to fight the dragon every day for 5 minutes? Do you know what I mean? I just wondering how you're going to try to address that kind of long-term challenge for this kind of slow, iterative gameplay.
So playing 10 minutes a day was our original idea. Currently, for this gameplay, we aim to have the players to play for about 30 minutes so they can interact with one block, and after that interact with another block. So at this point, we don't aim for the player to see a long-term pattern of our system growing, but it's more about how they feel at today's experience and how do they feel of the interaction and the decorating system. Do they have the ability to make the environment as what they imagined?
So how does this change over time? So if I complete a block today, I go back to that block tomorrow. You mentioned levels. Am I only able to access one level of a block per day, or can I blow through all the levels of a block, and then tomorrow, why would I come back to that block?
Each block will have different levels, and if you complete one level on a day, you cannot keep discovering on the same day. Yes.
But if you fail, you can always keep playing, and there's also other modules you can interact with if one block is stop you from playing today. So what we want to achieve is we don't want the player to play for 2 hours or 3 hours for this environment, but mostly spend time on each of the blocks once in a while and also experience the decoration system as the gaining the rewards. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much for sticking around for the last halves of the day. We are Team Extension, and we are an LBE team going to be setting up for the Fall Festival. So this is our team. Starting from the left, we have Anton, Cora, Harry, Cheryl, and Thomas. This is our faculty advisors, Heather and Charles. And today we'll be talking about what we've been doing so far, and then go right into project description and talk about our vision for the project. We'll talk a little bit about some of the third-party vendors that we've been working with. Then we'll go right into our development phase, what we're currently building, and we'll wrap up with our plans for the future. So I'll hand it right off to Cora to talk about our prototyping.
Thank you, Thomas. So let's do a quick recap of what we did in our prototype weeks. So we spent the first 4 weeks just prototyping our hardware using Arduino, and let's see what we have. So the first one is the proximity sensor. It can detect and sense the distance between the objects, and we are using sound feedback, like change the pitches of the sound to give you feedback of the distance. And the second is the EMG sensor. It is to detect the electrical activity or impulses from your muscle on your skin. And we are using the conductive pads on your skin. And the third one is the thermal camera. It can detect and visualize the heat and the temperature of the objects. And the fourth one, the bottom left one, is the keypad or the number pad. The fifth one, it's actually two parts. On the left, with the small fan, it's a remote controlled fan and using the microphone. And on the right is the hand gesture recognition. And the sixth, the last one, is our remote controlled light. And then we went through our feedback of our quarters feedback. We got tons of feedback, but we picked the top 3 that we think are most important. The first one is we got concerns about our hardware durability. And so we are going to increase and enhance our hardware robustness. And second is we're an LBE project, so we are going to share the space in BVW with BVW projects in festival. And the third one is we are in lack of narrative, so these are the three major directions we should work on. And then next, I will hand back over to Thomas to talk about the third-party vendors we have.
Yes, thank you, Cora. So these two companies were the companies we were put in contact with to potentially partner up with. They're Value Technology and Nextiles. We actually decided to pursue Nextiles. We really like their products. They make these garments where they sew circuitry and sensors into them, into their fabrics. And it really makes for this nice, clean, smooth wearable device where we can extract a lot of movement data from. So some of the other reasons that we like about them, one, they're willing to make us a tailored product that specifically suits our needs. Two, they're willing to give us software development support. So we don't have to worry about working around proprietary software, things like that. It also addresses the concern over hardware robustness by using an off-the-shelf product. And lastly, working with a third-party vendor that is not affiliated with ETC actually really pushed our team to create a clear vision so that we can communicate effectively to basically say, this is what we want, can you make this for us? So now I'll hand it off to Anton to talk about our theme and guest experience.
Thank you, Thomas. So right now we plan to set this experience many years in the future, set sometime during the 22nd century. The two guests are interplanetary explorers who right now we have called the pilot and engineer. Their mission is to travel to a barren, post-apocalyptic Earth to harvest a powerful energy source that is essential for powering a system that maintains environmental stability on humanity's new home in Enceladus. And there are many dangers in returning to this post-apocalyptic Earth. For one, the atmosphere has been eroded, which has led to extremely high levels of infrared and ultraviolet radiation. It's inhospitable, and it is in no way, shape, or form fit for life to survive organically. And this also has adverse effects on the vehicle the guests will be inside. So the weather causes mechanical components to become unstable, and also the fuel the guests collect can become volatile. So let's talk about the roles themselves. So first up, we have the pilot, who is fitted with powerful extensions, enabling them to control the movement of the vehicle in the environment. They interact with it digitally, so it will be projected on a large screen in front of them. And they must also harvest fuel and control the day-night cycle to create optimal climate conditions in this dangerous environment. So here are the wearables the pilot will have. They will be fitted with a haptic tack suit. What this does is it gives directional indicators for the pilot navigating the virtual environment. So if a fuel source is at a certain distance, that vibration on the suit will be mapped to the specific motors in that direction. And then as they move around in the environment, that vibration will travel across the body, so they always know where they're going. They will also have a Nextile sleeve, and the sleeve is used to calculate the position or rotation of the elbow. So if they extend an arm, the machine might go forward. If they retract it, they could slow down or stop. And if they rotate it in another way, they could turn left or right. The other guest, as the engineer, has the responsibility of interacting with the physical environment. So they must maintain cargo stability, i.e. fuel stability, and also mechanical components. So they interact with the physical room. And here are the wearables they will have. So first of all, they have a thermal camera. So we built a thermal heads-up display that enables guests to perceive heat pads in the physical room increasing in temperature. And this is representative of fuel or a mechanical system becoming unstable. They will also have, right now, electromyography sensors to also detect movement in the arm, although we would rather use a Nextile sleeve because it's more reliable and we don't have to worry about adhesive losing its power. They will also have proximity on their hands, so when they come up to a station to stabilize fuel, they will use a compression gesture. So they will gradually balance or judge the distance of their hands, which will be represented via feedback on a screen in front of them to gauge when fuel or a component has been returned to stability. And now I will hand you back to Thomas to go through the guest experience.
All right, thank you, Anton. So we'll accompany what Anton said with a game loop and some visuals here. So this is the room that we'll be working with, and upon entering, the guests will first enter the onboarding portion of the room, where they'll be briefed about their objectives, and we'll put the wearables onto them. Then they'll proceed into the vehicle portion of the room, where they will have a projection out in front, flanked by 2 TVs on either walls. These will simulate windows looking out into the world from inside the vehicle. So the game loop for the pilot. So the pilot can, like Anton mentioned, control the way they perceive passage of time. By moving their hand from left to right, they can control how quickly the time passes. And only during nighttime can they detect the resource through their haptic suit. They can then reorient their vehicle. They can control the vehicle by moving their arms to align themselves with the resource, and they will have to revert back to daytime to be able to see and navigate the terrain safely. Upon arriving at the resource, they will make another hand gesture to initiate the loading process, and once the cargo is loaded, they will be visualized on a cargo hold UI. So that is the overall high-level idea of the pilot's game loop. For the engineer, they control the water level to keep and maintain the temperature on both the vehicle and the cargo. So once the cargo is loaded, periodically they'll begin to destabilize from overheating. This will trigger an alert sound through the speakers in the room and also activate the heat pads that are placed around the room. This will be visible through the thermal camera that the engineer has, and once they determine which cargo is overheating, they will use their right arm to transfer water level from the vehicle into the corresponding cargo. In order to complete the stabilization process, like Anton mentioned, they will make this compressing gesture, taking advantage of that IR proximity sensor they have on their hands. Once the cargo is stabilized, they will have to revert the water back into the vehicle system because the vehicle will overheat during daytime when it's moving. Once the team collects enough resources, they will have completed the mission, and it'll trigger the end sequence. They will exit through the offboarding section where we will debrief their performance and then retrieve all the wearables on their bodies. I'll now hand it off to Cheryl to talk about what we're currently building.
Thank you, Thomas. So with the physical prototypes we built in the first 4 weeks and a narrative, we have moved on to developing some of the key mechanisms in Unity. So we have a basic environment setup and some example interaction. So the first interaction we have is time control with hand gesture. So as shown on the video here, we mapped and visualized hand joints in Unity, and you can control the time of the day by using a pointer gesture. So this video shows how the time control looks like in the environment. It's a sped up video, so in the actual game, player can control the pace of time by moving their pointer finger from left to right. And the next interaction is fuel source, which is only detectable during nighttime. So as shown, the particle visual shown here is to represent the locations players can feel through the vibration on their haptic suit, which represent the energy source in the environment. And the next interaction we have is cargo stabilization. So the 3 capsules here represent the energy cargoes players collected, and they can become unstable periodically and overheat, triggered by an alert sound. And as they become unstable, you can see the button here on the floor is to represent the actions player have to take to stabilize the cargo again. Now I'll pass it to Henry to talk about our hardware interaction and integration.
Thanks, Cheryl. So we are doing with the LB project, so that means we definitely have some hardware interactions. So the first thing we have is the resource detection using the haptic suit. We are using the BiHaptic suit, which is a developed product by BiHaptic Techs. So currently, the player can use this haptic suit to detect the direction and the distance through this haptic suit by its intensity and directional vibration in the vest. So player will roughly have the 6 direction, which is front and back, and its corresponding left and right. The next 2 thing we have is, for one, is our first prototype of the thermal camera head-on display. This mechanics is want to collaborate with the heat pad, our cargo overheating mechanics, which is we'll integrate this, we'll let the heat pad to communicate with the Unity to indicate the overheated cargo. So the player will use this thermal camera to detect which cargo is overheated and go to deal with it. And the third thing is the IR proximity sensors. Yes, we abandoned the ultrasonic sensor because the ultrasonic sensors are more wide and rough, and the IR proximity sensor is more narrow and accurate. So here comes to some challenge and takeaways before Halves. The first thing is absolutely the challenges. Yes, the wireless communication between Arduino and Unity. We are now successfully making progress in building connections between Arduino and PC using Python, but we wanted to go in further, which is, we wanted to build connections between Arduino and Unity, but no worries, we are in a good pace. And next 2 thing is we wanted to use more off-the-shelf product, which is needed. For example, it's our haptic suit. We are thinking of if we're really starting from scratch to building a haptic suit by ourselves, it will be impossible for the semester scale project, and it's not needed. And last thing is the fancy interaction doesn't meaning of the meaningful experience. We bought a brain-computer interface device before, but it now turns out to be that the BCI devices really need the player to have a really concentrate on one interactions. That's not what we really don't want to include in our experience. So next, welcome Thomas to talk about our looking forward plan.
Yes, thank you so much, Harry. So we want to start integrating our hardware interactions with Unity and start thinking about game progression and the room layout by the end of this week. We then want to have it at a play-testable state and start building out the initial room for playtest day. From then on, it's really about refining the hardware and the virtual scene while building up the room at the same time in preparation for the fall festival. And that's it for our presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and we're now open for questions.
All right, so you've got a game, and you've got fussy hardware, and you have to install it. How worried are you about scope and schedule?
So we currently have already started. So we were actually ahead of schedule. We currently started integrating the hardware interactions we want into Unity. All the mechanisms that we want to have in the virtual scene are already in there. So we are feeling comfortable. We're feeling okay about the scope. We're feeling okay about building everything in. So, yeah.
It seems like each player has at least 3 different kinds of controls that they're going to have to remember and execute during your experience. How are you going to support them when they inevitably forget what they're supposed to do? Is there an NPC that one of you is going to play that's going to instruct them in what they're supposed to do? How are you going to explain the fact that they're not experts in this task that they're supposedly sent to be experts in? You know what I mean?
So, yes, we have been talking about us being NPCs within the experience in costume to serve as some kind of either automata. It will depend very much on what the narrative is. We also, in the onboarding experience, will give the guests an overview, a kind of a tutorial as well, setting the scene. So we are thinking about us being in there to aid when necessary, yeah.
So just a minor question. So you say this is on Enceladus. Is this Enceladus the moon of Saturn or some other Enceladus? Isn't that planet made of ice? Okay, thanks.
Just to clarify, the guests are coming back to Earth, that is barren, from Enceladus. So it doesn't take place in Enceladus, it takes place in Earth. Yes. Yep.
I'm kind of curious how you're looking to balance the sort of the physical interaction with the fact that a lot of your theming happens through screens. And so like the world is not real, it's out through a window. And I guess, are you having stuff that's in the space that is part of like an actual physical presence, or is it more the guest has to map their senses through the screen to the environment and things like that?
So the ideal would be to have one guest, the pilot, yes, map their senses through a screen, but the engineer operates within the physical environment. So they're very much like with the thermal camera, interacting with, say, thermal pads that heat up, which could only be perceived with this aid of the heads-up display. In terms of the compression as well, that's on their body. We are, right now, thinking about some kind of particle effect, which, yes, is still on a screen, but we would ideally like some other kind of form of giving that feedback, whether that's through some kind of use of NeoPixel LEDs or sound, or maybe even smell, if we can. So the engineer is going to be the one in the physical environment. The pilot is, yes, interacting primarily through the screen.
So I read a theory about the shift of sense. About it's like in game design, you're trying to like simulate the other sides of your body, but you can still feel it. For example, if you like driving a car, if your car gets crashed, you can feel like your car is getting, you can feel yourself is getting damaged instead of your car. So, but currently, like your sense system or haptic system is more like talking to your body directly. So will that only limited to like your body sensory, or if I want to control a truck, or like will this like a shift of sense kind of disturbed it because it's only talked directly to your instead of indirectly to your bodies? I don't know whether this question makes sense or like.
I'm so sorry. Could you repeat
Yeah, sure.
that? Yeah.
So it's like in game design, sometimes we trying to simulate with different shape or different, like it's not about yourself, it's about like the whole world is communicating with you. So just to have a sense of shifting, like if you are driving a car, you feel like yourself is a car. If you're taking damage, it's like, oh, okay, I get take damage instead of my car get take damage. So, but for now, all the sensory is talking to you directly. So it's all about yourself. You're no longer like having the feeling that I am the car, and if someone is striking me at my car, if like I can only feel myself. So will this like direct way of communicating kind of limited the expression that you could have? Yeah, sure. Or you found a solution on this?
Yeah, so in regard to movement, the car itself, yes, there's no other like outer environmental sensory that you can feel, but I guess the cargo overheating is something that you would actually feel the heat. So if that's what you mean by like indirect sensory, so that's one of it, but just by moving the car that we have not considered, because the whole room is the car, so can't really shake the whole room. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
All right, it's time. Thanks, team. All right, and that's the last one of the day.